Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today we are joined by Charles Floate. Charles is a 14-year veteran of the SEO space. He has a wealth of knowledge. He has been around the block when it comes to SEO, and he just has a tremendous amount to share today. We start the podcast actually by talking really about the last couple of years for SEO for him. Certainly we have the pandemic that's been hanging over this whole world for the last couple of years. And he talks about how he pivoted his time and his efforts to go focus on his family's brick and mortar business, an e-com business that is selling furniture in the UK, but really around the world. And we talk about treating your website and any business project like it's a business, and some of the tactics that he implemented to get the business not only back on track, but really succeeding. And that transitioned us really nicely into where he's spending his time and effort with SEO right now. He had a number of websites in the travel space, which obviously were impacted pretty severely when it comes to the pandemic. Travel went to a standstill. So he starts kind of unwinding some of the things he was doing to his websites. Some of them he flipped on. Other ones he was doing other things with, but through that we get a lot of the strategies that Charles is using today to grow, monetize, and then sell websites. We talk about not only just websites and how to add more value to them, like we talked about with his travel portfolio, but also starting new sites. He is still starting plenty of new sites. And he shares why he's focusing his efforts on fresh domains as opposed to age domains. It's a really, really interesting conversation around age domains, fresh domains, what to do with age domains and where they work, and then where he's seen fresh domains work instead. We touch on analyzing core updates. We touch on what's coming up in SEO. We touch on where to put your time and efforts going forward, what's working. I thought one great tidbit he shared centered around how to get websites out of the sandbox quicker, how to get your articles indexed quicker. He goes through a bunch of strategies for that, very detailed there. So this is one of those episodes you're going to want to get out your pen and your paper, take a bunch of notes, because it's really a deep dive into a whole bunch of topics around websites, SEO, and business in general. Enjoy. Hey everyone, today's show is sponsored by Ahrefs, an all-in-one SEO toolset. Are you sick of your competitors outranking you in search results? Do you wish there was an easier way to get more traffic from Google? So one option is to get an agency on a kind of costly ongoing retainer month by month. The other option is to leverage a tool that tells you what to do. That tool is Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, and it's completely free. Again, this isn't one of those 14-day free trial offers. It's just a completely free tool. It's a super powerful one at that. It's going to do a full website audit for you, and it's going to keep working for you ongoing. Does all that for free again. It'll scan your site. It's going to prioritize precisely what you need to do to fix your website, which is going to improve your results in search. Imagine how valuable you'll become as you discover the changes that you need to make to increase traffic. It's time to get started on getting Google to work for you and your business. And you can visit ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools to get access to this free tool. We've included a link here in the show notes, but again, it's ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools. Thanks again to Ahrefs for sponsoring today's podcast. And welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we have Charles Floate with us. Charles, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jared.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks for coming on board. I know we're both recording here at different far reaches of the day, so I'm glad we were able to make the schedules work, and we're both going to be able to make this happen.
Yeah, I'm glad that we can. I'm glad the technology allows us to have the opposite ends of the world. Still allows the podcast to happen. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. If either of us wanted to do this during the middle of our day, the other one would need to be in bed to make it happen. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, so many things that we can discuss today. You're a veteran of the SEO space now for quite a while. Why don't you start by giving us some background, and then we'll dive into a bunch of the topics we have on the agenda.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing SEO for 14 years now, I think it is, which is literally half my life at this point. which is scary to say. But yeah, I've been through the industry, and I've kind of feel like I've been through the most turbulent time in SEO. And the introduction of Penguin, Panda, all those major algorithms, and then the changes in NLP in the last few years and stuff. It's been a very hectic time, but I feel like I've been able to run so many tests and run so many experiments and things that I've been able to get quite a lot of data to the point where I feel comfortable with any change that Google makes in the next at least 5 to 10 years. I feel comfortable that I've got the experience now to be able to handle it. So I feel like it's the best time to make money. The SEO industry has grown so much over the last 10, 20 years. It's now worth $80-something billion.
Wow.
And I just feel like I've been quite lucky to be a part of the growth that it's seen over the last 10, 20 years.
Do you think that Google, because you talk about referencing all the way back to Panda, Penguin, and then, the last couple of years and stuff, I think it's safe to say the number of, Google updates that are happening are more frequent. The changes to the algorithm are more frequent now than ever before. What do you think for someone who hasn't been in this industry for quite a while, what are the biggest changes that have been happening over the last decade or so in terms of the way things are working with Google now?
Yeah, so I would definitely say the quantity of algorithm updates has been just through the roof recently. In the last 2 years, especially, I feel like they've been going absolutely ham. You can't really go a week without seeing some kind of change and update in the algorithm. In the algorithm. That being said, I said quantity for a reason. I don't necessarily think the quality of the algorithm changes are as near impactful as they have been in the past. Things like the medic update, the first Penguin, second rolling Penguin, the Panda update, all of those things were, in my opinion, even more impactful in that singular update than whole months or entire quarters have been in the updates that they've been rolling out recently. So most new SEOs, in my opinion, will struggle just from the amount of information overload that's out there, the conflicting opinions that are out there, as well as just the sheer number. It can seem scary, but I'll tell you for a fact that it's not as scary as some of the algorithm updates that have been dropped over the years. That's for sure. Yeah,
the old ones are different than the new ones. That's for sure. I mean, it feels like, we're recording this around the start of 2022, and it certainly feels like they ended 2021 with just this, rolling episode of updates. And then we had the summer of 2021. It was, like you said, just the quantity of updates was insane.
Yeah, it was crazy, especially towards the end of the year. Like you said, I think we had 4 core updates in quarter 4 of 2021, which is unprecedented, literally in the history of SEO. Like I've been following updates, like I said, for 14 years at this point, and the quantity is just unfathomable in the last few years.
I run a marketing agency, and one of our clients that we're doing SEO on was wondering about how their website was doing through the update in December, because they were definitely getting a bunch of turbulence. And I kept having to go back to them and say, the dust hasn't settled yet. The update's still happening, and it's still happening, and it's still happening. It just went on and on and on. Yeah. So quite interesting times.
A ton of agency folks had a real struggle due to the November core update, because Google decided to roll it out 3 days before Black Friday, which is awful for most clients, right? If you get affected by that 3 days before the biggest shopping period in the year, that could be a death sentence, especially after the pandemic and all the effects on business and retail and stuff that's happened. Just putting another ball in the business owner's court to try and deal with is not the most fun things to do. It's the end of the year. We
can do an entire episode on just that. Let me tell you, I understand that well. Let's talk about what you're working on right now. What are you doing in terms of your own SEO? Where are you spending your time? What type of projects are you working on?
Yeah, so the majority of my time so I've kind of gone away from SEO, if anything, which sounds weird, for the last kind of 2 or 3 years. Generally, when the pandemic happened at the end of 2020, my family business was hit quite hard because we were dealing with the pandemic and then Brexit. And just a bit of a backstory, we manufacture furniture in the UK. So we actually have 2 factories, one in Wales and one in England. And we manufacture furniture, handmade furniture, and we ship it across Asia and Europe and domestically as well. But the problem we had obviously is Brexit just came in and kind of took out a lot of our European clients because we were no longer competitive with the EU market. And then the pandemic happened and people just stopped spending money, and a lot of our customers stopped spending money with us. So I had to kind of reanalyze my focus. I also kind of noted that the SEO space took quite a big hit from the pandemic, and especially a lot of my affiliate websites, unfortunately, are in the travel space. So they went from, 5-figure earnings to earning $5 a month. Like it was horrible, but it was, it's a life lesson that you have to kind of deal with. And it's an eventuality I kind of had to deal with as well. And I actually noted as well that it was an opportunity that you could deal with a lot of problems that you didn't have to previously. So that's why it allowed me to go into our family business, and I started automating a lot of the processes, making a lot of the machinery able to be operated remotely, which a lot of our competitors didn't have. So we ended up coming out of the pandemic a lot bigger than we were prior to it. And a lot of that is just down to the technological aspect and dealing with lockdowns. We never had to shut down the factory because in the lockdown we could operate remotely and all of that stuff. So I felt like in the last couple of years, it's been a lot of challenges, but it's been once you've overcome those challenges, it's actually put the business and my business in a lot better position than it was previously. And it's allowed me to kind of influence other people around me as well to do similar things. So a lot of people needed, in my opinion, this kick up the ass to diversify. And it kind of, if anything, it helped me more than ever do that. And it forced me to do it. So in the last 2 years, I've really just spent my time working on the family business, not really doing the SEO side, and then just diversifying all of my affiliate sites. I sold quite a lot of affiliate projects that had just kind of got killed off. And then I reinvested into diversifying my niches, making sure that I covered all my bases and stuff. And then I also managed to diversify into different countries as well. So previously, I was just doing a lot of English language SEO. I had like a few foreign websites. Now I've got like over 25 foreign language sites and stuff. So it's pretty interesting time, and I feel like it's been a pretty good time as well overall. Maybe not so personally, but financially, business-wise, it's been a great time for me.
It's funny because so many people talk about treating your online business, whatever it is, if it's an affiliate website, if it's a SaaS business, if it's a bunch of e-commerce, SKUs, or even some people, doing FBA, treating it like a real business, right? Like it's not like this business that we just operate online, but actually treat it like a real business. And what did you learn? It sounds like you got a crash course in e-commerce by running or diving back into your family business and having to actually get into the details of automating a bunch of processes and whatnot. Those are real business steps, not just online steps. I'm curious to hear, what your takeaways were from some of that deep diving.
Yeah. So the number one takeaway is the lack of technological ability that the general population has. It's quite amazing, because when I first went in, I was of the mindset, and it was probably stupid of me, that everybody's gonna be able to turn a computer on. And that turns out not to be the case. Some people needed help finding the power button for their laptop that we gave them and things like that. So it was quite a challenge converting, normal kind of factory staff and factory employees and things into this technological thing, putting an iPad in their hands for stock management, putting remote software online and making sure that they can operate it from their home computer. All that kind of stuff the hardest part of it is the training side, in my opinion, anyway. And that was a big wake up call into kind of not, I don't want to say dumbing down because that's very bad, but like making your training and making your advice more simplistic. That helped me a lot with not just the factory side, but also the SEO side. When I have somebody coming to me that is a general beginner in SEO, I feel now I actually have a better understanding and a better ability to teach them than I did before, just because I have that ability to now simplify it and make it a better explanation. The other kind of takeaways that I had are Amazon are not as amazing as everybody makes them out to be. We supply Amazon with quite a lot of stock, and they're a pain in the ass to deal with. Wayfair are awesome on the other hand. They're amazing. They have an awesome tech team and an awesome back-end system and things, and they are going to beat Amazon in the home space 100%. I have confidence in that. And yeah, so I feel like a lot of these big corporations and big companies and stuff, when you actually get to deal with them, are quite messed up inside and don't have nearly as much lean and efficiency as people make out to be.
So it brings up an interesting question that maybe I'll throw your way, because a lot of people spend time focusing on SEO, building websites through SEO, driving traffic through SEO, monetizing through affiliate ads, these types of channels, maybe private affiliates, Amazon, you mentioned. There's also, a lot of people that go down the FBA route, right? Fulfilled by Amazon, and they work on, building a product, maybe sourcing it through Asia, through different areas, white labeling it. I could go on and on. I mean, I don't want to say they stand in opposition, because certainly you can combine both, but it does seem like most people start and kind of end up down one path or the other. You sound like you have your hands and feet involved in many ways in both. Any advice for people thinking, or just thinking about which way to go, or for people trying to combine both in their business right now?
Yeah, so FBA is a great model. And in our business, we've actually transcended FBA now, because we're an Amazon original supplier. So we don't even do FBA. We actually supply Amazon originals directly now. So that's a whole different pool game as well, because instead of doing the orders through Amazon's FBA and putting the API into our stock system and things, we now just get a bulk set number of orders that we have to send to Amazon's warehouse and stuff. So the original start of FBA was quite difficult, because there's quite a lot of challenges that come with it, and just there's lots of hoops that you have to jump through, and all these fees that Amazon are trying to get out of you. Even just a lot of people don't know that if you want to stock in their warehouse, they charge you to hold their stock and things. So all of these little extra stuff and extra fees can be quite hard to pull the end profit out of your products. So I always tell people, if you can, sell it yourself, because you're going to save all of those middleman fees. You're going to do so much better off than you are on any of the platforms. The only thing is, those platforms got crazy reach and trust. The conversion rates on Amazon and on Wayfair and things like that are going to be a hell of a lot higher than your own website is probably ever going to be, just because of the psychology and the branding and that trust that users have got in those systems. So I'm also coming from the other side, where I've done affiliate and sites, like you said, as well. Don't do Amazon affiliate. I strongly recommend against that. This sounds as well like I'm hating Amazon, but they are a good company. They are a good company to work with. They just have a lot of issues, and they are profit maximizing gods, if you will. They will juice every kind of last cent out of you, and that's probably why they've been so successful, right? But I think that in the end, you want to try and maximize your affiliate commissions and your returns and that kind of things as well. And the percentages that you get from Amazon are just nowhere near the level that you'll get from other people. Even if the conversion rates match up, a 3% commission versus a 15% commission isn't even in the same league. So even if you're getting, a 2 times, 3 times conversion rate, you're still better off sending them to that higher commission offer. And that has been the kind of instinct that we've had over the last couple of years, is to just move every seller off of Amazon. So any Amazon sites we had got, we either sold or contacted the suppliers directly and tried to get some kind of direct affiliate offer through them, because you just got, like I said, a crazy difference in the commission rates that you would get directly with suppliers rather than through Amazon themselves.
Let's transition and talk about your sites. And you talked about having this, I'm being dramatic, but this exodus of getting rid of sites from spaces previous to the pandemic and kind of diversifying your portfolio. So it sounds like you're selling a lot of sites, and then you're either buying or starting a bunch of new sites over the last couple of years. Is that pretty accurate?
So I've been selling a lot of sites, or I've been flipping them straight into other investments.
Okay.
But I haven't really started many new sites over 2021. I think I started 4 or 5. I started 2 for the family business as well.
That's still a good number, maybe not in comparison to years past for you, but that's still a good number.
Yeah, exactly. 7 sites is not that bad, right? People are like, oh, what, I only did 1 and things.
I started 1 the last couple of years. All right. You're doing just fine.
Yeah, I know it's just bad for my team, should I say? I should have given them more meat to go after and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's another thing, right, that people don't realize, is when you scale to a point, the hires that you make, even in the affiliate space, are really, really important, because if they're going to be with you, then you want them to be with you for the long run, and you want them to improve over time, and you want them to have all these other things as well. So that's been a massive part, is just giving my team goals. I feel like instead of starting new projects, which I was probably bad for in years gone by, just we're going to do this new affiliate website, and the next week I'm bored of that. Let's do another affiliate website. So that was very much my mentality for a long time. But I feel like coming in and giving them all these goals and making them goal oriented around certain websites, and then giving them a return on them hitting that goal, because obviously if I'm making more money, then my team should be making more money as well. So adding that in more than doing the new websites has been a dramatic shift in the success rate of my sites. Like I said, though, in terms of transitioning sites as well, I really hated Amazon. So all of my VC partners, I just said straight up, all of my JV partners, straight up, I just said to them, I'm not doing it anymore. Like we're going to sell, or you can buy me out, or we'll just completely change Amazon as a platform, because we got banned off Amazon a few years ago, and they held over 6 figures of money and never paid us out. And that was for a terms of policy update that they did, that they didn't email or notify any affiliates that they changed the policy, and we broke it the next day, and they banned us like 3 days later. So within 4 days of them changing the policy, which they never updated anybody about or notified affiliates via email or anything, we were suddenly in violation and just got over $100,000 stolen basically from.
Yeah, because they keep all the money that you have, waiting to be paid out.
3-month payout or something. Right. It depends on what tier you are or something, and all this kind of stuff. But then, and also with Amazon, their affiliate customer service is non-existent. Like, you don't have an affiliate manager, you don't have an affiliate phone number, you don't have anything. So it's just, good luck at getting a reply to an email and hope that they ever pay you your money, kind of thing. They didn't for us, so that's why we kind of got rid of them in the end.
When it comes to flipping sites, what have you learned along the way? I mean, website flipping is a much talked about topic here on this podcast. And I know on a bunch of other, podcasts and whatnot. What types of things are you learning in flipping sites on and moving on from projects? And most notably, I think one question I have that's a little bit more detailed is how do you know when it's time to move on from a project? You talked about Amazon and diversifying out of Amazon, but are there any other, reasons to move on from a site, even if it's something that a year ago you were really excited about or something?
So the number one reason for me to move out of a site is I feel like I maximized the site in terms of what I can do for it. So when I'm actually website flipping, and I don't often flip sites, so I don't go and buy a site from somebody else and then sell it, just because in general, I prefer to have the whole control over the entire process. And I've bought sites before, and I haven't done this tiny little bit of due diligence. And that was the bit that screwed me, So it's just stuff like that, where I'd rather have the whole control over the project. And it allows me to control the branding, control the start of it, the whole link campaign, the content. There's nothing that, if it goes wrong, it's on me, right? There's nothing that I can't do about it to change along the way. And there's lessons a lot less costly when you're doing a site from scratch than if you go and buy a 100K or 200K site, right? So it's one of those. But in terms of the actual flipping, the best way I did see it was just maximizing the value add. So if you see a website, as a very good example, because I'm in the travel niche, I have Airbnb affiliate, right? There's two programs within Airbnb. There's Airbnb's partner program and Airbnb affiliate. And I've got Airbnb affiliate because you're supposed to have a minimum of 1 million visits a month to your travel websites, right, to get on Airbnb affiliate. Otherwise, you'll just be an Airbnb partner program, which doesn't give you much apart from credit to Airbnb and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have affiliate, you get a 60% plus conversion rate on clicks, 60% plus, which is just mental, right?
Yes.
And you get a 50% of their fee. So, and Airbnb fees are very, very expensive, and it's a 30-day cookie. So if you get super lucky and somebody books 5 trips once off the one click that they've done it through you, you get all of them, right? So a lot of the time, what I'll go and do is I'll go and find travel blogs that are doing really well, but they don't meet the requirements to get on Airbnb. So whereas I do, and I can just go and add a new website with a click of a button, right? Get it approved quite easily through my affiliate manager and things. And then I can go and add the site, put Airbnb affiliate on it, and it suddenly 5x is the revenue of the site, right? So it's one of those is the only real way where I see where I can instantly add value, is the only way that I'm really buying websites at the moment. The other side is that if you're very good at things like CRO, oh, I've got a bug in my face. If you're very good at CRO, if you're very good at email list management, if you're very good at design changes, if you know that you have hit the SEO nail on the head with this, people like Rick Lomas or Marie Haynes, who are very good at penalty removals, if you can find a site that is penalized and you know for a fact you can remove that penalty, obviously then that's going to be pennies on the dollar for a domain that could be worth a hell of a lot more in a year's time. So any times where you know that you can value add, that's when I would go all in and try and get it. But otherwise, I'm very skeptical of buying websites just because I like the control, and I have been burnt previously by not doing the 100% due diligence or just getting lied to, and the marketplace is not doing the right job. And then it's a tough job for the marketplaces, like, Flipper and stuff for them, though there's no due diligence on Flipper. It's like, that as an example, if there was, then it's very hard for them to do it in the first place, because you've got to have a CRO expert, a SEO expert, a PPC expert, a branding guy, and they've all got to do their due diligence report. And realistically, that's not going to happen. You're going to have one guy that it's their job to look for things, right? So I just have this lack of trust and ability to go and buy websites and stuff at the moment for myself anyway. So I prefer to do the starting fresh from scratch method.
It's a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. I mean, it's there, but it's how affordable is it for a brokerage maybe to pay for someone to dig and dig and dig and dig. And well, you put out a tweet recently, I think, that talked about, I think it was a survey you asked people, but in the end you were sharing that you build primarily on or exclusively on fresh domains these days, not on age domains and, drop domains and so on and so forth. I feel like a lot of the conversation nowadays certainly is about, hey, let's skip the sandbox. Let's build an age domain. Let's go buy an age domain. What's the difference between an age domain and an expired domain, a dropped, and all that? You're focusing on fresh domains. Why is that? And what's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, so I actually, this whole thought of the sandbox is actually my reasoning behind it. There's a sandbox with age domains, and especially with expired domains. Expired domains, I'm not a fan of in general, just because they're so hit and miss. Like the success rate, when we ran tests on expired domains, the success rate of actually getting the juice from the domain previously was like 10 or 12%.
Wow. Really?
Of domains. So, yeah, literally it was 10 or 12% of domains were actually passing juice.
And when you say expired, it's just
previous links.
Just drop for even just a day. Would that count?
Yeah, so any level of expiration is it's basically the date created date gets, when that changes, right? So the date created date changes, that's when it's classed as expired again. So and any expired domain seems to have a different kind of treatment. The one thing I will say is when you're dealing with foreign SEO or international SEO, non-English language stuff, there can be a lot of ways to use PBNs, to use sites that you just kind of spam with content, things like that. But obviously foreign SEO and international SEO is a whole different ballgame anyway. But you can use expired domains there. I just dislike them for any English language SEO tool. Age domains, on the other hand, have this repurposing sandbox a lot of the time. So you can get them where about 5% of the time or so, it won't have it. But 95% of the time, you're going to be running into a repurposing sandbox, which is basically when you take the domain, even if it was previously a domain that was, on the topic that you're doing now, just because you've slightly changed the keywords that it was previously ranking for, means you're going to have to deal with this repurposing sandbox, which basically means for the first, I would say 1 to 9 months, it's going to be really slow indexing. It's going to take a while for the pages to get indexed. It's going to take a while for Google to analyze, crawl, and update the relevancy of the pages, all that kind of stuff. There are ways around it, but they're expensive. It's not that cheap to go and do all that extra stuff on top. Whereas if you just build off a fresh domain from scratch, it's a clean slate. You don't have any reason for Google to go after you or treat you any differently. And you can do things from scratch, which they hadn't done on the age domains. So there's lots of trust signal based tactics and things that you can use to get your authority and get your trust signals and your trust within Google a lot higher from day one, straight away, and have that in Google from the entirety of your website, where Google trusts and authenticates and verifies the authenticity of your website, basically.
Yeah, a lot of what you're trying to do with an age domain is try to convince them that what you're doing now is more relevant. And so you're talking about how with a fresh domain, you don't have to go through all that convincing process with Google.
Yeah.
Let me hit you with a couple of specific scenarios then with these types of things. So one, another, I'll say common, I don't know, another tactic that's talked about is build your site on a new fresh domain while you have the age domain, and then move that content over after several months or after 6 months or something. What do you think about that? Is that going to help skip that sandbox problem, or is that just as ineffective?
Yeah, so I've actually seen people do it both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll do it from the age domain, and then they'll do like a Google site move in Search Console to a fresh domain and try and get all of the age and authority and stuff that way.
That was going to be my next question.
I've seen it the other way as well, where they do it a fresh domain and try and move it to an age domain to kind of to get past the repurposing sandbox. So there's two ways. I feel like it's all of these extra things you're giving yourself when you don't really need to, right? Like if you start from scratch and you've got everything on point and it's every link is good and every content piece is good and there's no problems at all across the campaign, then I don't see why you would give yourself extra headaches. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, because I want it faster, right? I need it now. But I can rank sites in 6 months of a fresh domain, in 3 months if it's a low competition site, and I might potentially be in a sandbox for 3 months on an age domain. So it's in my opinion a better and a more efficient and cost-effective trade just to go with the one singular domain. And it's always a gamble when you're doing site moves and 301s and all this stuff, where there might be that 1% chance where Google's crawls just completely mess it up and they don't pass juice and they don't do stuff like that. And it does happen. And even recently, Google has been dealing, especially last year, I feel like they dealt with so many issues, especially around indexing and things, that I don't feel that it's necessary to add on more problems for them to potentially have with your indexing, right? So just give them what they want, give them what they need from day one, and you shouldn't really have a problem.
So what about if you have a site right now that's established and you see a site, you're able to get access to a domain, whether it's an age domain, expired domain. Let's assume it doesn't have content. You're not buying an actual website. Let's take your travel site as an example. Let's take one of your big travel sites, and you have an opportunity to go buy an age domain in the travel space and just straight 301 it to either your website, or you rebuild some of the old links, or you redirect it maybe to just one of your categories. What about that as a strategy for using age domains? Not actually building on them, but just straight 301ing and try to capture some of that, some of the backlink power.
Yeah, so it does work. 301ing domains to specific pages does work. I like, it's not really his method, but Ryan Stewart kind of popularized it, where you basically, instead of buying domains and age domains and things, you buy at the page level. So you basically go and buy a piece of content that you potentially wanted already, from a blog that is kind of decaying or doesn't really utilize the piece very well, or the authority. Like you said, if you have a high authority domain, this is where it really comes into clutch, is you go and buy a piece of content that is amazing off of a DA2 blog that can't rank for the piece of content. You 301 the page and put the content on your page, and suddenly you're number 3 for the post that was number 23 on the old domain, right? So that's a very good one, where you're doing outreach to bloggers that have high-end content that you want, about a piece of content that you're going to make anyway, and it potentially has links and it has social shares and it has all that other stuff as well, which can help your site even more. So I like that method more than I like buying a domain and just sticking it straight at the site, just because there's other issues it can arise into, and it's always a gamble. That's the problem. I despite me being a bit of a gambler in terms of personality and stuff, I'm quite risk averse in terms of SEO. Just because I try to make sure that Google can't catch up to me, because I'm also kind of paranoid, right? That like, because I say all this stuff online, and it's kind of maybe potentially worthwhile, considering Google have come after me twice at this point and like de-indexed multiple domains and like banned my analytics account, my AdWords account, and my bloggers, like it's insane. Like, yeah, it's crazy. So stuff like that is where I feel like the paranoia is slightly justified. And also I ran into Gary Illis, who's like a Google engineer. And he was like, who are you again? Show me your Twitter handle at this conference in Bali, of all places. And I showed him and he goes, oh yeah, I know who you are.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I was like, damn it.
Of all the places you don't want to be known.
Exactly. And I've just got the head Google engineer telling me about this. So I was like, okay, right. Well, we'll leave it there then. And yeah. And so I do feel like my paranoia is genuinely kind of allowed, to the point where like a lot of the time when I'm doing work on my sites and stuff, even from my own laptop, I'll like connect to a VPN.
I was about to say, well, you must be a pro at VPNs. We could do a whole podcast on VPNs, it sounds like.
Yeah. RDPs and things are my go-to right now for my
man.
Sites, so, yeah.
Well, I think it's also, to be fair, because you're skilled enough to not need maybe some of these crutches, right? Like, I don't think an age domain necessarily is a crutch. It's a way to get an advantage, or it's a way to shorten the process. I mean, you talk about indexing challenges, but you clearly are able to easily do it in a fairly quick amount of time because of your expertise. I think a lot of people are not, don't have the same level of chops, don't have 14 years of experience. And so it offers a shortcut, but it offers risks along with that.
Yeah, and like I'm not even going to say it's on me, right? Like I will say a lot of it is down to the fact that I built a team over the last 14 years where I have a designer that's got like a master's in 3D art and design that can do stuff like that, and beyond my design abilities. I give him 2 pictures of Google Images and he makes me the Mona Lisa. Like, it's insane. So building an expert level team around me is where I feel I've got an edge over some people, just because I even if I can't do the work myself, I can get it done within an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and we can put sites live and put domains live within minutes, and if I really need to. So I feel like a lot of it is down to who you hire, making sure that it's the best hires possible for the job, and making sure that you're trying to get them to stick with you for 5-10 years, because that's what I've been able to do. And they've grown so much over that time as well, to the point where I can tell them a message on WhatsApp in 30 seconds and they'll build me an affiliate website. Like, it's crazy, right? So yeah.
Power of team. Can we talk? This isn't on our agenda, but can we talk about strategies for getting sites ranking faster, in terms of especially these brand new websites that you're kind of getting out of the sandbox a lot quicker than most, and then there's all these indexing issues right now that people are having, especially with fresh sites, with new sites, getting Google to crawl it and actually index it. I think we've all gone into Google Search Console at some point last year and seen the fail-fated discovered but not indexed message. I mean, what are your tips for getting sites out of the sandbox quicker, for getting fresh sites to start ranking and making money quicker?
Yeah, so it's all about trust signals, basically. Trust signals are baked into Google's algorithm that basically this is an extremely simplified analogy of how it works. But imagine a checklist of things to basically authenticate the validity of a person. Their date of birth, their address, who they were, their parents, all this kind of thing. The exact same goes for a website with Google. So Google is looking to make sure a website that is especially new can be trustworthy and is validated and is authenticated as a real entity and as a real business and a real company. So having things like an EV SSL certificate, where you actually have to link a physical business entity to an LLC or an LTD in the UK to the website and to the SSL certificate, where you have things like Wikipedia links, even though they're nofollow, and nofollow became a hint directive and they still potentially do pass juice, they do 100% pass a trust signal, because it's passing off topical trust around a piece to your website or to your page. Having citations and a physical address and reviews from actual customers on websites and things like that. They all can be manipulated, because that's what I do all day long. But these are the things that Google checks beforehand, that if a website is real or not. And a lot of the time, people are getting in this sandbox because they're not doing all of the actual business building stuff that every local business or every physical business does do in the first month or the first 3 months of building a website. So just checking all of those boxes and potentially checking any boxes that might be a trust signal is what I try to do, just to get sites ranking as fast as possible. And then even adding in little extra bits. Like, a lot of people think that press releases are a really bad idea, but you can get a press release on like Associated Press, which gets dripped around to Yahoo News and Yahoo Finance and all these massive websites and things. And you can get them for like $300, $400. If you can stick your physical address, if you can embed your Google Maps thing onto that press release, which you can do, that's another way to get your trust signal boost around, because it's again validating the authenticity of the address. And there's this whole thing around NAP, which is from local SEO, but I feel like it actually should be more of a general SEO thing, because it's a very good analogy for the consistency of your business and the consistency of your authenticity. Google want your phone number, your address, and your information to be all, and your business name to all be the exact same everywhere, every time, right? If there's any variancy, it tends to discount that part of the contribution. So if your citation has the wrong phone number or a different phone number, it tends to disqualify the entire thing from actually affecting and helping your business. Whereas if it's all consistent, then that's a more positive sign that Google's got the right and accurate information. Because bear in mind, Google's trying to authenticate things it can never actually authenticate. It's a machine trying to understand the real world without seeing the real world. So you can 100% do what I do, which is been very successful, which is just manipulate anything that Google is trying to see from the real world. And to the point where, a lot of people say that the reviews on other websites, so non-Google reviews, right, non-GMB reviews, don't affect your SEO. They might not, but we do them anyway, because it might be an extra trust signal, and it's definitely a user signal, so that they're going to spend more time on the website, they're going to spend more time. But again, it's just validating your authenticity over and over and over again in every possible place and location that you can. That's where you will get a new domain off the ground very quickly.
If you already have a domain and you're a year or two in, is it too late?
No, not at all. So SEO is always pragmatic. And it's always kind of, if you can do it, you can do it. And there's always something to do. That's what I say. There's not many instances where I'm like, look, mate, your website's fucked, right? Like there's nothing you can do to get this off the ground. There's not many of those cases. There's some cases where I'll say, look, you're better off changing and starting from scratch because you've messed up so many times along the way. But in general, there's so many different aspects of SEO, and there's so many different ways to change things or alter the situation that you're currently in, that there's almost, a 98%, 99% time or chance that there's a way you're going to improve it. So don't just completely give up on projects, because most of the time there's going to be something that you can do to get around it. Even if you've been penalized, there's tons and tons of cases of affiliate websites getting penalized and they're making a massive jump back after they've had the penalty removed.
And are those, going back to trust signals, are they something that can help you, grow a website a year or two and it's stagnated, can help you recover from penalties? Or is it more just on the front end for 6 months, 9 months when you're building the site?
So it's all kind of levels, and it will contribute to the success over time.
Yeah.
And the more trust signals you have, the more dodgy stuff you can generally get away with, right? So if you have got a few bad links that you've built over time, and even if you've disavowed them and the disavow hasn't worked, it's not picking them up, sometimes it doesn't, then those trust signals will offset that. So that's a lot of the time, it's kind of a protective layer around your website as well, where you're trying to stick a pin through a balloon, but the balloon's made of lead, right? So it's like you've made sure and covered every kind of surface aspect of it. So it's kind of a multi tier aspect, where I want it from day one because it's going to mean I rank quicker. I want it in day 2 because it means I'm going to rank more consistently, and I want it in day 3 because it's going to protect me versus future idiot myself doing some stupid shit to the website, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the time, sometimes it's just that one mess up, right? And I've had it before where I've ordered links off a vendor, or I've done stuff like that, and they've completely messed up the order to the point where I've had a site penalized because a vendor before I've ordered PBN links off of a vendor, and I won't mention names, even though I really want to. And they've put, for some reason, right, I sent them a sheet in Excel with the I think it was like 25 different URLs and the different anchor texts. And so they've used 25 different URLs, but they've repeated the same anchor text from the number one line on every link to my website. So I'm like, oh my God. And obviously like 3 days later, I got that penalty email and I was like, yeah. So stuff like that can happen, right? And putting in that extra layer of shielding does help, and it kind of offsets the chances that you're going to get hit.
I have clients sometimes ask me like, well, what, SEO, it's this crazy weird world. We're talking, with clients who don't really, understand SEO at all. And, what is allowed, what is not allowed, what is the analogy I always give, which it sounds very similar to what you're talking about. So that makes me feel better. But, like when you first meet someone, you don't have much trust in them, right? Like you're not going to give them the keys to your car. You're not going to let them drive you around. You're not going to let them necessarily even into your home, right? But obviously you compare that up against your best friend and, you'd let them take your car for a month if they needed it. And, you'd let them move in if they had to. And, the amount that Google trusts you is dependent upon a variety of factors, just the same as every relationship we have is built on a variety of factors of trust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've just got to tick the boxes and make Google trust you even more. And like I said, especially if you're a new website, you have to tick those boxes. Otherwise, you're going to get sandbox or potentially not rank or index or anything. So yeah.
I feel like it's, obviously out of the gate, so many people focus on producing a ton of content. They focus on, the when to start those backlink campaigns, where to put the backlinks. And it's really good advice to think about some of the things you're sharing. Obviously they work well, but obviously it's a little bit goes against the grain for what most people will talk about and focus their efforts on when they're starting a site.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't want to call everybody out again. I feel like I'm just calling people out in this episode, but like, in terms of the SEO space, I feel like a lot of the influencers and I want to say gurus, but I don't want to say gurus. A lot of the influencers, let's say, overcomplicate things. And I think it's potentially part of their agenda because then they can sell you the secret sauce and stuff like that. But it's not really, there's no secret sauce, right? There's lots of little tips and tricks and stuff that do work. And that if you can know them all and you can put them all together and stuff, then they'll work. But that's so much time and energy and cost. And if one thing goes down, your entire business goes down, right? So just being consistent, diversifying, and not overcomplicating things, making it simpler, making it more simple in general has been the bread and butter of my success, I feel, in SEO. It's just not trying. And also a lot of the time as well, I have got test websites that I can go and test stuff on. Whereas a lot of people don't realize they can set up a test blog. They don't need to be testing stuff on their $10,000 a month Amazon website, right? Like there's people that have come to me in consultations. They're like, well, I dropped half my revenue overnight because I did this. And I'm like, but why did you feel the need to do that?
Don't play where you're making your money.
Exactly. Yeah. So set up the tests that are away from your bank, right? That's what I would always say. But don't overcomplicate things. Make it as simple as possible. And that will also help inevitably your team and the people around you to make the whole process easier and better for them as well.
80-20, right? Exactly. Yeah, put 80% of your time or put 20%. Now I'm going to mess it up, but yeah, you get 80% of the value from 20% of your efforts. And so focus your efforts on those areas. There we go. Should learn my analogies before I start spouting them off on a podcast. Hey, while we move towards closing out, can you share maybe just, even if it's just rapid fire, or if you want to deep dive one specific thing, but just tips to add value to a site? Clearly we've kind of danced around that in many different ways and touched on it many different ways already, but it's almost the what haven't I asked you question, like just rapid fire or deep dive, whatever you prefer, but tips to add value to an existing site that someone might have.
Yeah. So if you should always plan a site sale. You should never just be like, okay, I'm going to sell my site next week. You should always plan 6 months prior to selling the website, just because that's the industry standard for a time frame of the profitability of the website. So some marketplaces will do a 12-month due diligence time frame, but the majority of them are a 6-month due diligence time frame right now. So it's basically the net profit, anything that's happened, the business expenses for the last 6 months. So that's when you want to plan, okay, the next 6 months, I need to make this website as lean as possible and as profitable as possible. So you want to be cutting out any stupid costs, any tool subscriptions, anything like that you're not needing for the website. Maximize your profit. So making sure that you're on the best commission program, making sure that you have all of the CRO done, all of this stuff done previously is how you're going to get the maximum value at it at the end when you actually sell it. And then in the time frame before that, ideally, you want to maximize the actual value of the website. So you want to be making sure that you have an email list, because you can oftentimes get upwards of $1 per email for having an email list on a website. If you're in the gambling space, you can get upwards of $5 per email. It's crazy. If you're doing social pages, you can get money for the social profiles. If you're getting Facebook pixels, you can get thousands of dollars for the audience data on the pixel data. There's all different parts of a website that are valued, but the number 2 points I think I'd make is, number one, stop using EMDs and PMDs and things for your domains. Use a brandable domain. A branded site, a non-specific, non-niche specific site is worth 2 to 3x what a specific niche site is. Just because if your site is dogwalksinmanhattan.com, you can never do anything but dog walks in that goddamn area. So you want to make sure that you are branding to the maximum kind of niche and kind of the maximum genericness in your brand, so that you can kind of inevitably cover anything that you might need to cover in the future.
And branded, for that example, maybe walkabout.com or something, or something very brandable, but really not related to exactly what's happening specifically with what your content's about.
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to you can make it like niche related if it's a generically niche related thing. So, if it is walking the park or something, call it leafwalk.com, do you know what I mean? Something like that, where you are covering all your bases within that niche. But even then, I still like trying to just go with something generic. If you can get a one word, and it's not actually a word, it's just a brandable word, kind of domain that is just completely generic, it makes
Walksy.com.
Exactly, yeah. So
I feel like every SaaS company nowadays is adding SY on the end of some word.
Yeah, and SaaS business. Walksy.io, that's what it is.
Yeah, right? Exactly. There you go. Or .co.
Yeah. So anything like that, where you're making sure that the domain is generic enough, or is just has the potential to cover any kind of sale point that you could do in the future. Just that's the number one burning thing, I feel. And a lot of site owners are like, well, why isn't my EMD worth $100,000 when that one is? Well, because it's the EMD, that's why it's worth $11,000 and not $100,000. Because the potential upside from an investment perspective is so much higher on the branded site than it is on the niche site. And then the second part is be pretty frugal and be pretty aware with your link building. So PBN links, you have to disclose most of the time. I do know some marketplaces that get away with it. You have to disclose if you have got PBN links or not. And sites like Empire Flippers have spoken with me, and they've spoken with like Matt Diggerty and people like that, and they've hired us to help with their footprint analysis. So we've actually helped them improve their analysis in relation to PBNs. So if you go and lie to them and say, no, my site doesn't have any PBNs and it's powered by PBNs, you're not going to be a seller on their marketplace anymore. So stuff like that is helpful from the investment angle, but also just be aware that it does affect your site in the long term, especially in terms of sales value, that if you're using certain link types, you will get a negative cost associated with the brand. But also there's so much potential harm in negative links right now that negative links and toxic links are just so much more negative than a positive link ever is, that it's almost like a 1 to 10 or even sometimes a 1 to 100 scale, right? You need like 100 good links to offset the one toxic link that you built stupidly at the site. And unfortunately, a lot of the link vendors in the game are also just selling toxic crap, like for $200 a link, $250 a link. It's mental. And they are burning client sites, they're burning sites in general, and it can take 3, 4, 5, 6 months to recover from one toxic link. Even if you disavow it, even if you get it removed, it can have the ghost link effect, where it can negatively affect your site for months or even years onwards. So just be very, very careful, especially with new sites, especially with sites you're going to sell, with what links you're building, who you're buying them from, doing all your due diligence, what kind of links they are. That's my kind of second piece of advice in terms of making sure that you're going to be able to sell your site as best you can.
Well, I will tell you that was like drinking from a fire hose for the last 45 minutes or so. We danced around a bunch, but I think that it was one of those things where there were just so many good things that you were bringing up. And I mean, what an interesting couple of years you've had, and just kind of recapping, but I mean, diving, headlong back into the family business, and getting hit with so many problems with the pandemic on all your travel sites, and yet coming through it all and changing up so many things. I think it was a really good interview, and it was a really good time to hear you kind of share some of the things that are working nowadays. We didn't get to talk about one of the big questions that I wanted to talk to you about, which is all these algorithm updates and some of your analysis on it. Can you just give us, as we go into 2022 and beyond, and we'll close on this, what are the big things that site owners, one big thing site owners need to do differently going forward because of some of these updates that have been coming out across the last couple of years?
Okay, so I don't want to kind of toot my own horn, but I do feel like I've been pretty good at kind of predicting how Google is going to be with algorithm updates. So when the November core update came out, I did a whole video about it, and at the end of the video I said, look guys, there's probably going to be a December core update. And I dropped that video, and then 3 days later there's a December core update. So and a lot of SEO Twitter and stuff, like even Barry Schwartz was tweeting that Googlers were saying there's not going to be an end of year on this and stuff. So I kind of felt in my soul that there was going to be another kick in the balls before the end of the year. So I just knew, I could feel it coming. And this year I kind of feel the opposite, where I feel like Google are going to slow down. And the fact that it's now, getting towards the middle of January and there's been no major update is a good sign that there isn't going to be a really hectic year. If Google had just come out swinging out the gates and dropped something like the 7th of January, I would be a bit more nervous about the rest of the year. But I feel like they're going to be a bit more relaxed. And especially they had so many issues last year, and there's so many complaints to the point where, I don't know if you know this, but Reddit's homepage got de-indexed.
Oh, I didn't. No.
Yeah, so someone did a DMCA takedown of Reddit's homepage, and it's worked. It actually got de-indexed. The whole homepage went out.
Wow.
So they had big companies. That was one example, but there were several other major problems. And I think that it's a bit different if they de-index some random affiliate SEO in comparison to the CEO of Reddit phoning them up and be like, hey, you need to really get our website back. So things like that are kind of where I feel like Google is definitely going to slow down this year. But there might be some seriously effective updates. You really never know. That's the issue around what they're going to drop. However, I feel like if you are a site owner going into the new year, don't be disheartened by last year. I know that a lot of people last year were like, oh, I'm giving up on SEO. This is just too many updates, too much stress. My wife's complaining that I'm talking about updates at 4:00 in the morning and things like that. So don't be disheartened by last year, because this year it's a new year, it's a new game, it's a new day, and it's going to be, in my opinion, a lot less hectic and a lot more willing to basically jump into the good nature of things. Like I said, if you do everything I said on this podcast, where you're just consistent, you do good stuff, you try and make your trust signals, even if you are like I do, where you manipulate it. I just feel like that's such a negative connotation of a word, even though it's exactly what I'm doing. But it works, right? You just want to make sure that you are manipulating the right places, and you're being correct about your behavior and things, and you're not overcomplicating it. You're not being too aggressive. You can be aggressive where you want with content, just be a bit more calm and links and things. And you should be all good to go and get your trust signals built out, and you'll definitely have that extra layer of shield and stuff around your site and stuff. So I definitely think that 2022 is going to be a lot better year for SEOs. A lot more success is going to be seen than last year was. So yeah.
Onwards and upwards.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's see. So a couple of things as we leave. I mean, where can people follow along? And I wanted to highlight that you have a number of different, I feel like a lot of people who are experts in the space have a course or something like that. You've got a bit of a different direction and just created kind of these micro topic ebooks. I know I've picked up a couple of them along the way, one on link building. I picked up one of yours on local SEO. And so where can people follow along, whether it's Twitter or YouTube, these different places? And then where can people get access to some of these ebooks that you have available?
Yeah, so the majority of my social presence is on Twitter, just at Charles_SEO. I deleted my Facebook several years ago now and have never looked back, to be honest, because it's the best thing probably for my time management and my mental health and things ever. Not having 50 plus people message me every day. It's just amazing feeling to not have to deal with. So then in terms of the ebooks and stuff, I do have some video courses and things, but I saw it as a bit of an opportunity during the pandemic that all of these courses are like $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 if you're OMG machines, for example. And that's way too much for the SEO information that they're giving out, right? So, and also pandemic, there's all this massive online learning curve that happened, and this kind of need to learn cheaply. So I decided I'd just smash out all the SEO information that's in my head, put it into an easily digestible format, whether that be ebooks for some stuff, videos for more complicated explanations and things and more advanced things. And then just kind of drop it individually. So, you know, the maximum course I have now, to be fair, now it is $1,000. They're up from like $300 originally. And it's 9 hours of video, of advanced SEO video content. And then the cheapest one is like $19, $17 something. And then I have tons of free ebooks as well. So even if you don't want to spend any money, it's just charlesfloate.gumroad.com. And you can get access to all of the free and premium training for SEO. There's some Twitter marketing stuff, some SEO copywriting stuff. I try and diversify as well in the ebook game as well. So
of course, you wouldn't be taking your own medicine otherwise, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on and sharing. I mean, I feel like an hour flew by, and we probably could do several more hours. But in the interest of time, we'll stop here. But thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for everything you shared with us.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did as well. So it was awesome speaking to you and kind of just letting out my thoughts for the year. It was a great start to 2022 as well.
Perfect. Yeah, this will be a good lead in for 2022 for everyone. And yeah, we'll have to do this again. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Once again, today's show was sponsored by Ahrefs, an all-in-one SEO tool set. Hey, so if you're sick of your competitors outranking you in search results, and you wish that there was an easier way to get more traffic from Google, one option is to go out and hire an agency. They're going to help you out, but probably on an ongoing monthly retainer that's going to be costly. Another option is to leverage a tool that tells you exactly what needs to be done. That tool is Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, and it's completely free. It's not one of those 14-day trial offers. It's just completely free. It's a super powerful tool. It's going to do a full website audit for you. And it keeps working for you after that. So it's not like the access ends there. It's going to scan your site. It'll prioritize precisely what you need to do and what you need to fix to improve your results in search. Imagine how valuable you will that knowledge will become as you discover what changes you need to make to increase your traffic on your website. So it's time to start getting Google to work for you and for your business. You can visit ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools to get this free tool. Again, we've included it in the show notes, but once again, it's ahrefs.com/webmaster-tools. Thanks again to Ahrefs for sponsoring today's podcast episode.